like to echo Dr. Ahmed Al-Hamli's words of welcome. I and WISE, we are delighted to partner with Trends, and this is our second major event, and this partnership has been a fantastic partnership. So thank you, Ahmed. I would also like to thank the Minister of Science, Her Excellency Sarah Al-Amiri, for her inspiring words and her call to action. Also want to thank you for being just such a fantastic role model, not just for young women in the UAE, but I think across the globe. And as we talked before, Your Excellency, we need more young women in the engineering, science, technology, and mathematics arena, the so-called STEM arena. And you and the work that you're doing here in the UAE are an inspiration for many young women. As somebody once said, if you cannot see it, it's hard to believe it exists or it's possible. So thank you on behalf of all young women. As the MC said, my name is Chantal Oudraat. I'm the president of Women in International Security, also known as WISE. WISE is a global membership organization that seeks to advance the role of women in the international peace and security field. We were established some 30 years ago, and as an organization, one of our main objectives has always been to encourage young women to enter the field of international peace and security, a field that continues to be very, very male-dominated. So how do we do this? We do this by involving young women in our work, in our policy engagement and our research activities, through mentorship and networking circles, through skills and knowledge building programs. Excuse me. Now, WISE is not a youth organization per se. Most of our program and research are not specifically geared towards young people. And I actually prefer a more intergenerational approach and a mixed gender approach. Because even if we are called Women in International Security, we also encourage men, young and old, to join us. That said, we do tend to cater a lot to young people, and we also have some specific programs that target graduate students, or as we like to call them, next generation of scholars, experts, practitioners, and policymakers. And we hope to expand these programs in the future, including here in the region, in the Gulf region, together with Trends. But let me go back now to the topic of our conference. Our conference is about the role of youth in peace and security. And in this conference, we want to highlight two very important international policy instruments. The first is the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda, which was launched in December 2015 by UN Security Council Resolution 2250. And by the end of this day, all of you should know what 2250 stands for. The second important policy instrument we want to look at is the UN Youth Strategy that was released earlier this month. Now, the Youth Forum that will follow immediately afterwards will address the youth strategy, so let me focus a little bit on the Youth, Peace and Security agenda and this UN Security Council resolution. Now, I see a lot of young faces in the audience, and you should know that this is your resolution. It is the result of the advocacy and the work of many youth activists and civil society organizations. They believed and they believe that the 1.8 billion young men and women between the ages of 10 and 24 need to have a voice when it comes to peace and security. They believe that the 408 million young men and women who live in fragile and conflict-affected states or areas need to be represented and need to participate in peace-building efforts. This UN Security Council Resolution 2250 and the Youth, Peace and Security agenda it launched calls for that. The agenda, the Youth, Peace and Security agenda, recognizes the importance of participation, partnerships, and the importance of involving and engaging youth in conflict prevention. The resolution also requested the UN Secretary General to prepare a study on the contributions of youth to peace processes and conflict resolutions. This study was released earlier this year and has a title, Missing Peace. And the idea behind this title was that youth is the missing piece when we consider conflict resolution and conflict prevention. Now, in the panel that will follow the Youth Forum, we will examine this resolution in more detail, and we will see what it means in practice when we talk about a youth, peace, and security agenda. What are some of the challenges and what are some of the opportunities of this new international agenda? Now, before I cede the floor to my colleague Ellie Dunhill, I want to leave you with 4 thoughts. First, the issue of young people is an issue of importance not only for national governments, but for the international community at large. Think about it. 42% of world population is below the age of 24. 42%. In Africa and the Middle East, young people are the majority, and in some countries, the percentages are as high as 60 or 70%. So the magnitude of the youth population has major national and international social, economic, and political ramifications. Second, be careful not to put youth in a box. I have been very involved in the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And one of the things that we realized is that the framing of the Women, Peace and Security agenda as a women's agenda has also made it very easy, particularly for the traditional security community, to pigeonhole the WPS agenda as a women's issue and hence considered it a secondary or tertiary issue. And I fear that this is a challenge that the Youth, Peace and Security agenda might face as well. Third, youth is not a homogeneous group. It's actually a very diverse group. It's differentiated not only by class, that is economic position, ethnicity, etc., but also and very importantly by gender. The experiences of young men and women are very different. And indeed, it is actually during adolescence, when you're still a youth, that gender differences and gender identities actually appear and intensify. Even if, funnily enough, in our public discourse, we tend to efface these differences when we talk about teenagers, adolescents, youth, etc. The fourth and last point I want to leave you with is that youth is a transitionary stage. Youth is a transitionary stage in life. It is a passage from childhood to adulthood, from dependence to independence. And in many countries and cultures, this passage is often difficult. And it's also very different for young men and women. In general, during this time, the world expands for boys and contracts for girls. For boys, this is often a time when they gain autonomy, mobility, opportunity, and power. Girls in general are systematically deprived of these assets. That said, these passages and gendered roles and norms that they bring with it, you know, as I said, are very different in different cultures and societies, but these gendered roles and these passages also change over time. Now we know that, you know, many young people across the world often feel frustrated, excluded, and marginalized. They feel that they cannot transition sometimes into that position of adulthood. But again, as I said, the good news here is I think that these passages and the rights of passages and these gender norms change over time. So we're here to figure out how to make these rites of passage less hurtful, more natural, and how to advance gender equality. And we do this because we think this is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. If we want to live in a prosperous and more peaceful world, all members of society require respect, consideration, and should be able to participate in public life. Thank you.